20. So Graham, obviously you talked about a kind of general interest in this area of people looking to invest. What do you see as some of the barriers they'll have to overcome to address and want to be able to realise that software in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is cutting through the noise. There is a lot of what's the best word to like marketing noise going on right now. And actually, just when cloud became a thing, all of a sudden every organisation was a cloud company, and everyone cloud washed their offerings and just put cloud in front of everything. With digital sovereignty, it's the same challenge that I think people are seeing, is that everyone is out there realising that a lot of money is going to be spent in this space, and there will be a lot of money spent. I mean, go back to the analysts, I think they're talking about by next year, 10% of IT budgets will be spent on digital sovereignty solutions. Now, what that means is quite broad, because it's a broad church. And I think the first thing customers will have is cutting through that noise, because there's going to be a lot of talk around, well, if you do this, you tick, that's achieving digital sovereignty. So I think it's going to be important to speak with vendors, speak with your colleagues, and even with your competitors to kind of get that common understanding of what you actually need to achieve. Skills, number one, that's going to be the biggest challenge, I think, for any organisation, to have the right people, because unless you're going to spend a lot of money with big outsourcers, big SIs who are going to do all this work for you, then you're going to need some in-house skills to really help with this. Processes, I think, is going to be one of the biggest challenges. So, a lot of what we see coming down the line with digital sovereignty will be things like DevSecOps. So, how do you build applications in the right way and have the right development processes in-house? That's a cultural change. So, it's very much about the people, and then links back to the skills. Technology, a lot of organizations out there don't have the right technology to be able to make this change. We talked about containers and Kubernetes and those sorts of technologies that a lot of organizations haven't adopted yet. And again, that's going to, links back to skills. How do you do that? And I think, and the biggest challenge that we mentioned earlier, portability. So this is every customer we speak to. The analysts are saying the same thing. Outside of cost and complexity, kind of the biggest technical challenge is portability. Because I think when you look at digital sovereignty and all of the noise that's coming around it, it does always seem to come back to that question of, how do I move workloads around? Because I think at the moment, a lot of customers feel like if I can have the ability to move workloads around, I'm on the pathway to achieving sovereignty, which is control. So I think that those are going to be the key things. What we say to customers is that we are not coming in, for example, as Red Hat, we don't come in and say, there's two of our products, put them in, you've achieved sovereignty. We come in and talk about processes, skills, methodology, technology as an enabler to get you on that pathway. And I think that, for me, is the most important message that we give. And I think I said it earlier, which is you don't achieve digital sovereignty. There's no defined list that you do and then you get a certificate. It will always move as the macroeconomics of the world move, as policy moves. I mean, at the moment, the EU, particularly if you're in the EU, doesn't obviously impact us in the UK, but you look across France, Germany, Italy, they're all just sat there looking at the EU going, okay, what are you going to do next? And if they suddenly announce something like DORA, for example, how do we react to that? And again, so the focus is now around IT strategy. And again, we've seen from working with the analysts, a lot of talk around how all of this has meant that every organisation is now looking at how they adapt their IT strategy to adapt to the change. Because there is a huge risk in this. And back to the point about, I know we talked about it a couple of times, Ukraine. I mean, for some organisations, that fear of, well, what happens if, no one ever thought, I never thought I'd see war in Europe, none of us did. What happens in the future if another two countries are, there's trade barriers or sanctions? Again, this is causing a lot of concern for organisations around how they have their digital borders. So, yeah.
Okay.